Okay, so this is the guided annotation task we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks for the text we've selected. What you'll be doing is analysing the text to produce your own annotations and also to get your own analytical thinking prepared so that you have a bit of prior thinking, prior knowledge based around how to write your essay. So the learning attention, sharpen your skills of analysis by looking at examples and then applying that to the task of annotation and also the task of summarising down to the key annotations rather than just annotating overly or in any excessive manner. So the success criteria is you'll have looked over a number of exemplar analyses and you'll also apply your own readings and understandings to the chapter you have been assigned. So your task is to watch videos, do pre-reading and sort of familiarise yourself really well with your chapter, and then you're going to reduce down the key quotations to the annotations that you'll make. There'll be 3 to 6 for each of the 4 categories and a little bit on the reading as well. Each quote you've decided is important, you'll just read aloud and you will highlight it on the page and we'll record the actual book being annotated. And then for each quote you'll just give a small summary of why that's important and how it's relevant to the chapter. And this will be used by your peers either live in the moment or if they miss it and fall behind, we'll put a copy up later. So first thing you've got to do, just basically type in the name of your text and the chapter you're doing into YouTube. You're looking for anything from 10 to 20 to 30 minute videos on the chapter, and there are those out there. And then if that doesn't work, failing that, I guess you're going to sort of your traditional study guides online like Shmoop, Cliff Notes and Spark Notes, and you're looking for key quotes, key annotations, motifs and all that sort of thing. The only thing is you'll probably have to smush it a little bit to make it fit with the annotation guide we're using for this text. Step 2 is annotation. So the actual annotation, you're going to be focusing on characterization, which is describing the characters, themes, the key themes, symbols and motifs, which are symbolic aspects, and alternate readings. Obviously, that is different ways of perceiving or understanding or interpreting the text. And then the last thing is you'll produce a summary statement, which I'll explain in a sec. Alright, so characterization is a description of key characters, and for this they're usually a little bit longer than just a simple quote, which you want to be short so you can put it in an essay. For characterization sections you want to be sort of highlighting, underlining the entire section, and then if you were to use it in an essay you would go through and find the key parts within that characterization. But these sections are sort of to help you understand the characters and what they do. The sort of statements you might make after you read out a quote about characterization is this characterization is key to the chapter because it gives us an idea of who Ralph is or similar. This section shows us that the character of Piggy is weak and ineffective. Or this characterization shows the allegorical significance of Piggy as he represents the intellectual aspects of the island. Step 4 is the thematic annotation. So theme are sort of the big ideas that are going through the whole text. Again, you're just looking for minimum of 3, maximum of 6. Anywhere in between there is fine. And once you've read out your quote and sort of showed us where to annotate it on the page, you're going to say phrases like this. So this sentence relates to the theme of freedom because we see the character impacting his freedom excessively. Another example would be this line summarizes the author's thoughts on freedom in that it suggests that freedom is a privilege rather than a right. And lastly, this event signifies the theme of poverty in that we see the way that poverty affects the confidence of the characters within the story. Alright, the next step, symbols and motifs. So for this you're going to be drawing a little picture, doing a little image. However you decide to do that is up to you. In that annotation guide you should have available. There's ones I do because I'm a very visual annotator, but it's kind of up to you how you do it. Or I guess you could just write the name of the symbol or the motif if you're unsure. So again, minimum of 3, maximum of 6. This symbol suggests and relates to the theme of, or this motif recurs throughout the text to show that the conch shell is very important to the children and it represents legalism or something. The symbol of Jack Spears relates to the text more broadly, and then it shows that violence is something that humans refer to very quickly and very often. Step 6 is alternate readings annotation. So you're looking at your interpretation of the allegory and what types of readings you're making on the text. So the next slide is sort of all the alternate readings that you could be going through, but This section lends itself to a political reading in the sense that all of the young boys on the island are beginning to act out political systems in their own little tribes. You could say social reading assists us to understand this section, as we can see that the problems on the island are also problems elsewhere in the world. Or this section suggests that the author is providing us with a suggested reading of politics, because he wants to show the negative effects of fascism on the post-World War II era. So the possible readings are just here. Should be pretty clear. The only real tricky one, I guess, is colonialist, which is sort of one based on race and the colonization of countries, and the rest should be reasonably clear. If you've got questions, just ask me about these. Alright, number 7 is a summary statement, and I'll have to give you an example of that, but and also give you a hard copy of this with it much more clearly blocked out, so it's easier to read than this font, which is not ideal. But your job is just to make a statement about the historical relevance, the reading, and how you think the author went about using his writing to suggest what he suggested according to you. Alright, and the last thing, your final step, you'll need to write a script or a running sheet to sort of give you an idea for your guided annotation. And you'll need to have, obviously, your annotation ready. If you're working in pairs or threes, probably one of you is just doing the actual reading or the performance, and the other person will be sort of keeping track of the running sheet and making sure that you're able to find the right pages to do your quotes in the sequence that you intend to. So obviously, if you're doing, say, 3 thematic quotes, you want to get those out of the way first, then move on to characterization, and not just sort of jumble back and go back and forwards over these. And I hope that's a pretty clear explanation of your task. It's quite complicated. And then following this, there'll be a short little video of me doing just one quote for each section to give you an idea of how that works. Okay, so there's just a tiny guided annotation for you to see sort of the structure and how you could set it out. The first thing I've got here is just my annotation guide, so we'll be looking at themes, symbols, readings, and characterization. We don't have any intertextual references for the first chapter, which is what I'm focusing on just briefly. So like I said, I'll just do one of each kind. So we're going to start chapter 1, The Sound of the Shell. We're going to keep turning and turning until we get to page 16, which is actually page 6 of the novel, without all the introductory information at the start. So what you want to be highlighting here is, I expect we'll want to know all their names, said the fat boy, and make a list. We ought to have a meeting. So this bit lends itself to suggesting that the book is a political reading, because one of the first things they do is try and set up a government or some political structures in place. So that's my reading quote, which is the political reading. For characterization, you want to be looking up here, which is the top of page 19. It says, I can't swim, I wasn't allowed my asthma. And this is a key characterization of Piggy that suggests that he is he represents intelligence, intellectualism, and he lacks any real sense of physicality in the novel. So that's really important for that. Maybe in an essay, if you're talking about how Piggy is representative of intellectualism, this might be a quote you could use where he references his asthma, which shows his physical weakness. Thematically, we've got here, I've noted the outside world, but this is for fear. So it says, didn't you hear what the pilot said about the atom bomb? They're all dead. And then, nobody don't know we're here. Your dad don't know, nobody don't know. So this is a key scene because it sets up the fear of the rest of the novel, and everyone becomes quite concerned from this point on, to such an extent that they later create the beastie, but I guess this is sort of the source of that, which will later become the beastie. At this point is just fear. Symbol motif, we've got the conch. As we see here, Piggy says, a conch, ever so expensive. This isn't too important of a quote, but it's just a clear example of a motif in the novel to get you thinking about it. And that's all we've got. We've got some other assorted underlining here, which I won't go into detail about because I've done one of each of the types of quotes. And then the last thing you do is make a summary statement about your chapter with reference to the historical elements, the author's biography, and also the author's style. So that would be something like, in chapter 1, the author focuses, Goulding, the author focuses on out the characters, so he uses a focus on characterization, and descriptive writing to set up what the island is like. And based on the war period of World War II, we would suggest that he has quite a negative view of the world, as he had went to war and came back with quite a poor opinion of humanity. And that's what he's trying to illustrate here. And to illustrate that, like I just said, he uses a lot of characterization, and the characters clearly represent allegorical parts of the book. All right, so that's just a really brief overview, and the rest is sort of up to you to do by yourself. Good luck.